If you're an indie filmmaker, you have absolutely heard of Filmhub. But what are people really saying about it these days? Well, we're going to dig into a brand new report from the Film Collaborative to get the real story.
Okay, picture this. You've poured your blood, sweat, tears, and probably all your savings into making your movie. It's finally done. Awesome. But that's just half the battle, right? The next giant mountain to climb is distribution. And let me tell you, it can be a beast.
So before we go any further, let's get a really important term straight. You see, a traditional distributor, they often take control of your film's rights for a long time. But an aggregator, they're different. They're more like a service that just gets your film onto different platforms while you keep control. And that little distinction, it's key to this entire conversation.
Right, so keeping that in mind, let's zoom in on one of the biggest players in the aggregation game, a company that's been making some serious waves for, well, both good and not so good reasons. Filmhub. To really get what's happening now, we have to rewind a bit. We've got to look at why so many filmmakers were flocking to Filmhub in the first place. Their original model was built on this super appealing, totally hassle-free promise.
I mean, listen to this quote from a filmmaker. It just nails the initial appeal, right? A streamlined process, transparent accounting. Especially for creators who didn't want to get tangled up in the old-school distribution mess, this was a dream come true.
And here's another huge piece of the puzzle. You know, with traditional distribution, you're often waiting months and months for confusing sales reports and payments. Filmhub completely flipped that on its head. Real-time sales tracking and instant payouts? For a lot of people, that was an absolute game changer.
So just to sum it all up, the early model was incredibly low risk. It was filmmaker-friendly, you had a non-exclusive deal, a simple 80-20 revenue split, no upfront costs, and this slick dashboard that got you onto tons of platforms. I mean, what's not to love?
But, and you knew there was a but coming, according to this report, that early, super positive experience started to change. A lot. The whole story shifted, and it started to feel like there were two completely different versions of Filmhub out there.
One of the first warning signs was customer support. Early on, filmmakers were raving about it. It was quick, it was personal. But lately, the feedback paints a very different picture. We're talking slow, unresponsive, waiting 3 to 4 weeks for a reply that might not even answer your question. Yikes.
And it wasn't just a support. People also started reporting two other major problems: a glitchy website revamp and, way more alarmingly, a sudden steep drop in their earnings that a whole bunch of filmmakers seemed to experience all at the same time.
So what happened? Why did everything suddenly change? Well, the Film Collaborative's analysis points to one thing. These issues seem to line up perfectly with a massive pivot in how Filmhub actually does business.
And this brings us to the real heart of the controversy, what we're calling the catch. It's this new expectation that filmmakers have to start paying for features that used to be totally standard. To put it as simply as possible, Filmhub rolled out these new subscription tiers. And when they did, they took essential tools that many people saw as just part of the basic service, and they locked them behind a recurring paywall.
And we're not talking about a couple of bucks here. These new subscription plans are running from about $100 to $200 a month. And that's on top of the 20% revenue share they're already taking.
So now, if you want to do things like set a release date or just get better customer service, it's going to cost you extra. But the most critical feature, the one that really got people upset, that's now behind the paywall, is something called channel blocking. Let's talk about why that is such a massive deal. So why does the ability to block certain channels matter so much? I mean, it's not just about picking and choosing where your film goes. For a lot of filmmakers, this is all about protecting their work from being pirated. And here is the absolute core of the issue. The report says that Filmhub can place your film on standard, ad-supported YouTube, where it is incredibly easy for literally anyone to rip a high-quality copy. This is not like a secure rental or purchase platform. So, the end result? Filmmakers now have to pay a monthly fee just to keep their own movie from being put on a platform where it can be easily stolen.
All right, so all of this brings us to the central dilemma that filmmakers are facing today when they think about using Filmhub. It really just boils down to a choice, a fundamental choice between two very different things.
This quote from the Film Collaborative really gets to the philosophical heart of it. They argue that Filmhub's will-do-it-for-you model can actually stop filmmakers from learning the business side of things, which is the exact opposite of what they're trying to do, which is empower filmmakers. So here's the trade-off. On one side, you've got convenience. Filmhub can be a super easy way to get some passive income going, especially for older films. But on the other side, you give up control. Control over where your film shows up and how it's protected, unless you're willing to shell out a pretty hefty monthly fee. And you might be missing out on some really valuable lessons about how distribution actually works.
So in the end, the decision really comes down to you and what your specific goals are for your film. So the question we want to leave you with is this. When it comes to your art, your creation, what do you value more? The ease of passive income or the power of active control?